Hello and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell,
And I'm Patrick Gonzales.
and today Patrick and I are going to speak to former Maryland Labor Commissioner Pat Helminiak. Uh, Matt has been a colleague of mine for 8 or so years during the Hogan administration. We both served at the Maryland Department of Labor. It's good to see him again. He has his own consulting business, and he's here today to talk to us about the looming Family Leave Act. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Now, Matt,
Absolutely.
what is the nature of what you're doing these days?
I do management consulting. I also teach undergrad. I teach a human resources course at Loyola University in Maryland, and uh, thankfully have no role in the implementation of the Family Medical Leave Act at this point, but go around and talk to people. And when you meet employers and employees and you make small talk, nobody other than people in the HR business, nobody knows this law is coming, and it is not 10 years down the road. It's the tax deductions are going to start this coming July, and nobody knows it's coming.
And for those of us who don't know what the Family Act is, can you tell us a bit about that?
It's to put it essentially, it's a paid family medical leave law. It's like FMLA, which is federally mandated unpaid leave if you have more than a certain number of employees. Imagine that, but take away all of the brakes and all of the bumpers and let the car go down the cliff. It is no minimum number of employees, so one employee and you're covered. No waiting period, unlike sick leave or family medical leave. At FMLA at the federal level, you're eligible if you work at least 680 hours in a rolling calendar year. There's no requirement like with sick leave that you could wait 90 days or 106 days. It starts the moment you're eligible. When you've gotten to your 680 hours of work in a year, you can take leave. It is paid leave. The employees and the employer pay into a fund at the state level, and then it's administered much like an unemployment system by the Department of Labor. They've set up a division just to administer this. So you pay into the system starting July 1st, 2025, which is next year. The taxes will be put in for 1 year, and then employees can start making claims July 1st, 2026.
Now,
So
you said there's taxes by employers and employees, did you
right.
not?
Yeah, it's 0.9% of payroll up to the Social Security cutoff. So I think it's 168,000 or so, but
Right.
0.9% of payroll, and that's split 50-50 between the employer and the employee. So the employee will pay 0.45% of their payroll. The employer pays 0.45%, and that goes into the state fund. There are some minor adjustments. If you have less than 15 employees total across the country, the employer doesn't pay their side of the tax. It's just the employee contribution. Still, all of the benefits are there for the employee. You get up to about $1,000 a week in paid wages. So whether you're employer contributed or not, the employee is eligible for the full amount, but it's 0.45% employee paid, 0.45% employer paid goes into the fund. And then there
Okay.
is a private option. An employer can have a non-state organized benefit through an insurance company, for example. But you still have all the reporting requirements and all of the back office stuff that you have to do. It has to be at least as generous, if not more, than the state option, and you still have to send all your data to the state.
Okay, Matt, I want to ask you a question so lay people, dingalings like me can understand what you just said. You said 0.9%. My immediate thought, am I correct when I'm thinking 0.9? Medicare is 0.58, correct?
I think Medicare is 6%.
No. I mean, I'm talking about you. Oh, you're okay. So
You, You talk about the
Between Social
Medicare
Security and
part?
Medicare, I think it's about
I'm
6%.
talking about what an employee's comes out of their paycheck, the percentage to compare 0.9% to when it comes to Medicare and when it comes to Social Security. Can you frame it? So it's 0.9 for this. How would it compare to Medicare and Social Security? How does that 0.9 compare?
It's much less than what you're paying for Social Security and Medicare.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
But so if you make $1,000 a week, you're paying roughly $4.50. Your employer's paying $4.50, and that goes into the fund every week. And then if you want to use leave, you get up to 12 weeks of paid time off per year for your own medical needs. And then if you want to take care of a family member, it's an additional 12 weeks of paid time off. So 24 weeks between you and a family member. And then if you have a military family member that is got to go for a deployment, another 2 weeks. So up to 26 weeks a year of paid time off, which will fundamentally change the way the employer-employee relationship is in Maryland. If you
now let me ask you a question. Okay, my wife is pregnant. She's due in about 3 months. Now, when she has her baby,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. It's our 5th child. 6. Now, anyway, can I, when this happens, can I take 3 months paternity leave?
Yes.
Great.
Because you're taking care of a family member, and she can take 12 weeks of leave for herself, and then an additional 12 weeks to take care of the baby.
Oh, what a country we live. Matt, who came up with this idea?
The Maryland legislature. Don't blame the Department of Labor. They're nice people at the Department of Labor. It's not their fault. They're just implementing what they were given. So the legislature wrote the bill. It passed. They've been working on this since maybe 2017 or so. It was a summer study. It made it through committees, and it actually passed in 2022, but they've been pushing back the start date a couple times because you've got to create essentially the entire unemployment system from scratch, because you need a database, you need the staff, all the regulations. And just because they passed the bill doesn't mean everything's defined. So like there's a definition, or there's the bill applies, you're allowed to claim leave for your domestic partners, but domestic partnership is not a term that's anywhere else in Maryland law. So they have to define it through regulation. And they've got a definition that'll blow your mind, because when you typically think of domestic partnership, you think cohabitation. But there is no requirement in the current draft regulation that you live with your actual domestic partner. You can live, you don't even have to live in the same building. You don't have to live in the same town. There's no requirement you even live in the same state with your domestic partner.
Matt, do these conditions have to be documented, say by a doctor or a hospital? Or is it, they just go to you and you just go to your employer and say, hey, I got to take care of my domestic partner in Hawaii?
It will need a note from some sort of doctor. So that yet has to be defined in regulation. They're working on it. And they've got, the Department of Labor is doing a really good job. And you would be impressed with how well they're doing with these regulations. They're keeping people up to date. They hold monthly webinars. If you as an employer have a question, you can just email them. They'll email you back. Their monthly webinars that they put on, they go through their presentation, and then they have a stump the band thing where you can just fire questions at them and they will answer questions as fast as people can type them in. They're really doing a good job. So I don't want to throw any shade on the Department of Labor, but the bill itself is got a lot of open-ended stuff that just has to be figured out as they go. And it's going to be surprising for employers once they figure out what's in here. And an employee can come to you on their second day of work and let you know that, hey, here's a note, I've got to take leave in a couple of weeks and I'm going to be out for 2 or 3 months. It's one thing if you're a big giant company and you've got some redundancy and 100 or 200 employees, but if you're an employer with one single employee and your one employee has to take off, that's allowed under the law. There's no exemptions for a small business.
It seems to me there should be some sort of like
can take off in 12 weeks.
It seems to me there should be some sort of like base period, like an unemployment where you pay in over a certain amount of time and then you have a certain amount of earnings and then you're eligible. It doesn't sound like that's in the regs or the enacting legislation.
So every employer has to submit wage and hour data into the system. So right now, if you're an employer, you submit somebody's wages and name to the unemployment system so they know who's working in Maryland and how much they make. This additionally requires you to give the hours worked. So every employer has to send into the Department of Labor the hours worked, the wages, and usage information for every employee. The Department of Labor will then maintain a database that adds up all the hours. Once you accrue 680 hours between multiple part-time jobs or one full-time job, you're eligible to take leave, no matter how long you've been with your current employer. So you can work somewhere, get your 680 hours, go to work somewhere else, and it doesn't matter how long you've been at the new place. Day one, you're leave eligible, as
So it
long as you get
sounds
that 680.
it sounds like this program, when it comes into effect next July, to summarize, that the contributions or taxes start to come in,
Mhm.
then the program really begins. Uh, but it's going to be a work in progress because there's going to be unanticipated problems that come up, which the department would have to correct by regulation or legislation.
Right.
Is
And
that
they've got to get the system tested and working. So you've got a database system. You and I were both at the Department of Labor during COVID and saw what happened when they turned on a new database to administer
right?
unemployment claims and the system couldn't handle it. It's
Right.
one thing, it's like at the stadium, whenever they build a new stadium, nowadays they know that they have to have a whole bunch of people go to all the toilets at the same time and flush them to really test the capacity. You
Right.
think your stadium can handle the toilet flush until you put somebody at every toilet all at the same time. You think that database can handle the demand and you test it. Not until you put it under the full public weight of 100,000 people trying to access it at the same time do you know whether or not it's going to work. So they've got to get a database that works. Then people can start filing claims and everybody's going to figure it out as they go. When I was at the department, I was on conference calls with other states. So Colorado, some of the other states that have it and that are a couple years ahead of Maryland, and have seen what the different issues are. And every state's bill is a little different. So it's not like Maryland's bill is the exact same as Colorado's. But we're very similar to Massachusetts. There's
Mhm.
some overlap. But the thing that they were surprised at in Colorado was not that people used it for birth of a child or their own medical condition, which is what you kind of think of when you think family medical leave. The
Right.
number one use in Colorado was mental health needs. So your mental health is par with physical conditions under this bill. So you can have somebody that has mental health needs that is also eligible to take leave. So there's a lot more usage cases than you would think under this bill if you have a mental health need. And not that there's anything wrong with if somebody needs to take leave, that they have the leave that's available. That's in many cases it's a good thing. But it's a lot more things that are eligible under the law than most people might think because it's a
I,
different definition than FMLA.
I saw from being on the Board of Appeals at unemployment at Department of Labor, you had to be able, available, and actively seeking work. And a lot of people who had, say, mental health issues and were not able to work, they would not be eligible for unemployment, but they could be eligible, or probably are eligible for some sort of temporary assistance under the Family Leave Act.
Yeah, there's no able and eligible to work requirement in this. If you need to take time off to for a medical need, and same thing would be for a physical need, you're not able and eligible under the unemployment definition if you had surgery or recently had a baby. You wouldn't be able to work under those circumstances. That's what this law is for. That covers those things where you're not able to work.
The employers that you speak to, what is their biggest fear, or what are they doing to prepare for the implementation of this law?
A lot depends on the size. The bigger employers that already have some sort of short-term disability program in place, this might not be a huge adjustment for them. It's going to be the smaller employers that don't have an HR staff, don't have staff attorneys, and don't know what's coming. you're, as a small employer, are under the same obligations as a big employer. You need to understand how this law works, how it interplays with FMLA, how it interplays with state sick and safe leave, all the different things you need to be able to juggle while trying to run your business and get your customers happy. It's going to be a lot. The smaller employers are the ones who I worry about the most, because how do they have the time to learn the ins and outs of family medical leave when they've got a business to run? They're the ones who, they just kind of shake their heads, and I don't know what they're going to do. I guess you hope your employees never find out that the law is there, but it's your obligation to tell them about it.
Right. Patrick, what do you think?
Well, honestly, I spent most of this time learning, and I appreciate it, because I knew nothing about this, and now I know more. And anytime in life I can engage in something and come out with more knowledge, I am happy. So I'm very happy right now.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I feel like the prophet standing on the street corner with the end is near sign sometimes, just trying to let people know that it's out there. And there will be very good uses for it. If you are a small employer, this does enable you to compete with big employers that are able to offer big company benefits. So it will, in some ways, level the playing field between small and large companies. I also expect larger companies are going to have to rethink the way they offer benefits, because a lot of the benefits that they already offer will now be redundant. So you might see a peeling back at the larger companies, because there's no need to have a short-term disability program if you already have a state short-term disability program in place. So there's going to be adjustments, and we're going to figure it out as we go.
It sounds like the big task ahead for the state is to get the word out more about this program and what is required, whether employers need to register on a database or not, so that they're not held in contravention of the meaning and intent of what this law requires. That there's going to be a lot of HR people that are going to have to get trained in this and get up to speed, so that they can keep their companies in line with the law.
And the
Matt,
database is
Matt,
supposed to be ready about March. Yes, sir.
Matt, yeah. The one reaction, because I really am learning about this, is, remember my comment the other night about it, you cannot legislate morality? And again, I don't know. This has a little, to me, based on what I've learned so far, it has a little tinge of that, I think. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. So
that's all right. What I was saying was that the database should be ready to accept registration from employers sometime around March. So database around March. Taxes need to be starting to be withheld from the employees' paychecks in July. And then all the employer data round about October 1st, it's due. The first quarter's data and contributions are due 1st of October.
Well, great. Well, Matt, we're happy to have you here. This is going to be educational to a lot of people, because I in my travels, I'll go out there and say, this Family Leave Act is starting soon. They looked at me with, deer in the headlight looks. And I think once the word is out and people start to register, get used to it, corrections are made, and hopefully this will work out best for the state of Maryland.
A lot of people are going to find out when that first money comes out of their paycheck next July.
Right. Nothing like a notice affecting your money, right?
Yep.
Well, keep us up to date as to what's going on. If there's any big changes coming up, especially during session, let us know. Would like to have you back on.
My pleasure. It's
thank
been
you,
great.
Matt.
Well, it's time now to bring the show to an end. Say goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Bye, Patrick. Well, thank you, Matt. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.